Good afternoon, actually evening. Good evening, everyone. It's such an exciting time. It's such an exciting moment to be here. And I think it's a passion of ours as well to build marriages. And we're very excited to get this invite to be speaking to couples, to be speaking to people who are getting ready to get married, people who are in relationships, to actually try and have a conversation about marriages. But before we even continue, we just want to extend our celebration to the Moholu family for reaching this far in your marriage. And in celebrating of spring, not only that, we're also celebrating the anniversary.
Yes,
You know,
we
it's
do.
so it's
Yes,
a
we do.
beautiful thing to actually witness, and especially in this day and age where marriages are being attacked, where relationships are being attacked, and it's such an honor to witness people who are actually still believing in marriage, still believing in relationships. And as we are here today, we are further wanting to further that conversation as to how do we stay intact in our marriages? How do we keep marriage healthy? How do we still keep it being that institution that God honors? How do we honor it the way that God honors marriage? And we're excited, right?
Yes, we are.
We're excited.
We're excited.
We're
We're
excited
excited.
about tonight. And so tonight we actually wanted to speak specifically on the strategies of conflict management, which is one of the things that can cause marriages to end, which can cause relationships to end. But then how do we as couples strategize around that? Because I believe that God gives us wisdom to actually deal with such in marriages and even in any other relationship for that matter. And so tonight, let's dive into it. We want to share a presentation that we've made. So we've titled this conversation Managing Conflict in Marriage. And let me not waste any time because I want to make more time. We wanted to make more time for conversing, for having authentic conversation. How do we move further?
Okay, let's see.
Okay. So this is the conversation outline that we are going to be tackling tonight. Firstly, trying to define what is conflict. Number two, why it's important to resolve conflict. Number three, conflict management strategies for couples. And the fourth one, we're going to have a conversation. And I think which is one of my favorite, conversing. And then we're also going to share with you what services we offer as a couple and individually. So let's move. Okay, so do you want to go in this one?
No. I don't want to go, but I think probably something to is a question that I want to throw to to the couples while we are starting with this conversation. Have you ever experienced conflict in your marriage?
Yeah.
Is conflict good or bad? Is conflict an indication
that we are failing?
Or what does the real conflict mean to you? Do you run away from conflict?
What's your conflict style?
What is your conflict style?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So this conversation, we just want to have a bit of provocations to challenge ourselves, to confront ourselves when it comes to conflict. So the very first thing that we're going to do is just to define what is conflict. And I love how Ruth defines it, which I'm going to hand it over to her to just define conflict for us. And we're going to have a conversation.
Okay, so just in defining it, maybe just to give a psychological definition by Deirdre and Gelfand. So this is how they define it. They say conflict is a psychological state that occurs when individuals perceive their goals, needs, or values as incompatible, which creates tension and disagreement in relationships. It involves not only external issues, but also emotional, cognitive, and relational processes that influence how people respond. So, if I were to really sum this up, I'd say basically what conflict is having a difference in opinion. And I think the moment we reframe how we understand or define what conflict is, it changes how we look at conflict. Because sometimes a definition can cripple you. For example, whenever I work with clients, I like making the statement of, instead of saying my weaknesses, rather rephrase it to say my areas of improvement. So it gives you space in knowing that I'm improving on something. It's not a weakness, because the moment you define something and how you perceive things, your perception determines your reaction at times, and it determines your behavior. So how we would define conflict, in fact, going forward in this conversation, I would want you to look at it as in something, or we having a difference in opinion.
Yeah.
You seeing it this way, I am seeing it in another way. And that, by the way, does not make us enemies. It simply means that we perceive things differently. By virtue of you being or raised in a different background than I have been, by virtue of you having experiences, maybe different experience in work, this different experience in how you perceive people or things, by virtue of that, it means that we are going to see things differently. And that means we are diverse people. And there's a beauty in diversity, by the way. So I want us to reframe how we think of what conflict is, because in fact, if we have not understood what conflict is, it's easy for us to deal with it in a manner that will make us look or feel like we are competing with each other. It makes us feel like we are enemies towards each other. So which also makes resolving conflict a difficult thing because of how we perceive it. Do you want to add something?
And I think Ruth, something quite very key that you mentioned, and there are two things for me. The first one is the issue of backgrounds, that our backgrounds play a very critical role, a significant role in conflict. We find that we are differing on matters just because of the backgrounds that we are coming from. And it could also be because of their career backgrounds. Those, they have an impact. Someone probably is a lawyer, the other one is a psychologist. You end up feeling that we are psychoanalyzing in this conversation.
I feel like you're arguing with me. You want to win the argument.
Argument as if like you're in court, you know? The other part could be the difference between those who are introverts and those who are extroverts. Those who are very eloquent, or who have the strong command of the language, the strong command of the communication skills. Those things have a way of making people to have a conflict, and the other one will decide to say like, I can't say anything because you always win the argument. So the other one always say like, no, let's talk about it. Let's read now. And you know, so the element of the backgrounds that people are coming from, your family background, your career background, your financial background, and your leadership background, many other backgrounds that we can talk about. The background such as like we are the firstborn and the other one is the lastborn, both of us are firstborns, they play a very critical role when it comes to the issues of conflict. That is the first thing in terms of what we need to be mindful of when it comes to conflict. The other thing that then becomes very important is the issues around competition and comparison. And at times when the couple is really finding itself in a space whereby they are competing, whether or knowingly or unknowingly, intentionally or unintentionally, the internal competition and the external competition. What's the difference? The internal competition is when the couple competes between themselves. The external competition is when the couple or one of the two is competing with the other couple. So the element of comparison is quite very critical for us to be mindful of that, because it can cause unnecessary conflict. You find that we are having a difference, not necessarily about ourselves. We're having a difference because of the external pressures that we have inflicted upon ourselves.
Yeah.
So it is quite very important to understand that conflict at times, it can be as a result of the number of things or several things that we have just mentioned here. So we got to be aware, and even as we are defining it, to say, where can conflict come from?
Yeah. And I think just to add on that, Modise, personality tests, and hence if you probably want to work, or you are already working with a counselor or a psychologist or whoever, to do what we call a personality test. It's a psychometric personality test. So what that does, it helps you understand your spouse or your partner better. And because at times when someone has maybe a strong or very strong-willed personality, they might be perceived as a very bossy person, and only to find that that's how they are wired. And that has a way of actually bringing or causing couples to actually have conflict. When someone is an introvert, as you've mentioned, introvert or extroverted person, the other one feels and the difference between the two, when you are an introvert, you get to be energized more when you spend time on your own.
Yeah.
And the extroverted person gets to be energized when they see people. They want to be around people. And sometimes then you might find that couples, the other one is forcing the other one to spend more time with people, whilst the other is she's an introvert, but you're forcing her, or he's an introvert, but you're forcing her, and make her feel as if they don't like people. But it's not that they don't like people, it's they get to be energized differently than how you are wired. And that does not mean it's a bad thing. We need to find or strike a balance in that. But I don't want to dwell on that so much, so that we don't waste much time on trying to define.
Yeah, Ruth, but I think it is also very important, the point that you are making on the aspect of really understanding each other.
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand each other, what is going to happen is that we are going to try to make each other what we are not.
We're going to trigger each other.
We're going to trigger each other.
Yeah.
So it therefore becomes very important to understand the personality of your partner, even if you have not done what we call personality tests. Because other people I know, when we say personality test, they say like, hey, I'm wired by God. I don't want people to box me. Yeah. So, but just to understand your partner, spend time, invest time understanding your partner. Do you know, after 12 years of being married, it was only a few days ago I got to understand this. You listening?
Yeah.
No, you must not listen. You know, I'm talking to the people here. So it was, I think it, probably I've heard this before, but I think how Ruth, and the moment that she presented this, it hit differently. I had a better understanding, a different understanding. She then spoke about that kindness ministers to me. Kindness, when people are kind to me, and like, okay, I did not get it all along. So it is
12 years.
12 years, full 12 years, and apostolic years. You know, the 12 years is the year of the apostolicity. So we are in continuous journey of understanding each other.
Yeah.
So we got to listen and listen to understand, and then understand your partner. If you understand your partner, it makes it easier for us to avoid conflict. So it helps us in avoiding this aspect that we say it creates tension. What are the things that creates tension? And another example that I can give is this one at least didn't take me 12 years, but it took me some time. that when I would have traveled home or anywhere else, the first thing that I would have to do is to tell Ruth that I've arrived. And I did not understand that at times these guys were like, you want to control me when I want to control me, eh?
Wow.
Yeah, nyindoda phela, ha. You know, but it then made life easier to understand that it is for my safety. It's also for her safety to know that I have arrived saved. Then after this, I can now sleep because I know that we are safe where you are at. So things such as those, they cause disagreements, they cause tensions in marriage. So conflict is inevitable,
Yeah.
but it can be managed. It can never be eliminated. It can be minimized. So the intention is to say, can we minimize conflict as much as we can and understand that we cannot eliminate it? But conflict does not mean that we are failing. Conflict does not mean that we are enemies. Even when we have a difference in opinion, we have difference in opinion with an understanding that we are partners and we are friends. And the verse that Ruth loves in Proverbs chapter 31, I think it's verse 26, that talks about the law of kindness. So it's important also. We will talk about it as we go along around the strategies. But I think it is quite very important for us to really put this strong background around the subject of conflict because it is imminent. It is going to happen. But how do we handle it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Can move?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Okay. So the next slide, why it's important to resolve conflict. Number one, for me, it protects mental health. In a sense that when, for example, if the conflict is chronic and it's not resolved,
And what is a chronic?
It's consistently happening.
Okay.
We're having a conflict, but we're not resolving it. We keep putting it under the carpet. We pretend as if it does not exist. We pretend as if I prayed about it and let's leave it at that. And we are not authentic in resolving it. So what that does, it actually puts you in this cycle of anxiety. So you in that, then you are no longer protecting your own sanity and your own mental health, because then if you're going to constantly be living with conflict that's not resolved, it's going to cause anxiety, it's going to cause stress, it's going to lead to depression. Just a few days ago, I was so saddened by so one of my cousins called me. We have a friend that we've known for years, and actually I think it's on TikTok now. We've known him for a couple of years. We used to go to church with him. He's actually I think you probably heard the story. He was a detective in Boksburg. So he left a voice note apologizing to his children. They are 6 and 4. And he says, okay, marriage has been difficult. He has been having difficulties with his wife. And so he shot the wife, he shot some of the family members, and he drove far to shoot himself. And he left a note saying he's apologizing to his kids for causing the trauma, but he could not take it anymore. So that can already tell you that this person, and I know that we might look at it in different perspective or in different lenses, and I know that others would believe that a person who kills themselves, they are cowards and all these things that we say. But when a person reaches that state, it means they were no longer seeing a solution, and so they wanted to end the problem. But now, in them ending the problem, they were not seeing it fit for them to seek for help. Maybe they've been seeking help and the help was not coming, or maybe they have not been seeking the help. So what I'm trying to put across here is that never think that you cannot resolve issues that you have in your marriage. And for all you know, you might just find out that couple B and C and D might be going through the same thing that you are actually going through. But because we have not created safe spaces such as this one tonight, where we can talk and be authentic, where we can actually open chapters that we think we have closed because they are painful to look at, and you look at them authentically so and resolve them. Because the only way to resolve conflict, it is to converse. We can't, there's no other way around it. It is to converse, and as uncomfortable as it is, we cannot ignore it. So if you fail to protect your mental health in that state, one of the things would be not resolving conflict. Do you want to add something on there?
No, you're right, Ruth. I think for me, the fact of the matter is I think when you showed me that, it broke my heart more often than not when we don't go to the point three, which is creating safe spaces and creating the safe place for us to have even hard conversations.
Yeah.
The issue is that at times we have presented marriage as a garden of roses. But we have not had conversations whereby we tell people to say, in the 12 years that we've been married, we've had challenges, we've had differences, and at times we have a difference on a Sunday before going to pulpit. Pastors, amen, amen, pastors, amen, 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 pastors. Just before you go to pulpit, then you still stand there and preach heaven on earth as if nothing has happened. There are different things that happen at different times. So if we don't create safe spaces, it therefore affect us to have conversation that are protecting our mental health. And one of the things for me in creating safe spaces is the ability to communicate openly. It is important that we can communicate openly. It is very critical so that someone doesn't find the safe space outside the marriage.
Yeah.
We must create safe space in our marriages. So your wife must feel free
You must
to
be
have a
the first
conversation.
place.
You must be the first place. In fact, I love the point. It does we can add that thing to create the first place.
Yeah.
In
First
marriage.
responder.
First responder.
Yeah.
It must be your partner. You must be able to practice the sense of gratitude, the sense of appreciation, the sense of acknowledgement when someone feels that they are acknowledged. And I think, Ruth, when you talk about this again, you then talking around this thing called the sandwich approach, which we might touch on. But the point is to say we need to practice the aspect of appreciating each other to create the safe space. That becomes very important. Safe space is not a pretense space. It is the authentic space whereby I know it's genuine, that I can be myself with Ruth. You can laugh at the jokes that don't make sense.
Yeah. My husband's jokes don't make sense.
The broken jokes.
But I laugh anyway.
Yeah. So we've got to be able to create that particular space that is important for us in that. And one of the things that will help us to create the safe space is also to really create the what we call quality time. Then it helps in terms of resolving conflict. And one of the things that makes it difficult again to resolve conflict is when people are not listening. I know that we'll touch that, but I think in creating safe space, if you are not listening, if you are listening to respond, you're not listening to understand, you are affecting the safe space. So it is quite very important. If there is no safe space, there are less chances of us being able to resolve conflict. And the other thing is the aspect for me, the culture of attacking each other. It makes it difficult to resolve conflict, which therefore we find ourselves not having a safe space. We find ourselves not being able to protect our mental health. That is quite very difficult. Remember, in the workplace, in other spaces, it's already difficult. So how do we make sure that at least our homes and our bedrooms they become the safe spaces And Ruth, as you say, we're looking at how resolving conflict will prevent relationship breakdown.
Yeah,
It will
absolutely.
help
Yeah.
in making sure that we don't find ourselves that having broken relationships.
And we're tearing ourselves up,
Exactly,
each
right?
other down.
Yes, and then strengthening emotional intimacy. I know that we didn't talk about this one in our slides, but it also helps in terms of the intimacy. You know, the intimacy I'm talking about. So where there is less conflict, then it makes sure that even that area is
protected,
enjoyable,
yeah.
is protected, and then there's no one who feels that I just want to go outside. Marhona le ba seleng, I get. So we should also not condone. But the point is to say that when there is a resolving of conflict, even that area is protected, strengthen emotional intimacy, it creates a safe space, it prevents relationship breakdowns, and it protects our mental health. So for me, these are some of the things that are quite very important that we need to be paying attention to. And Ruth, I think in the interest of time, we can move to the next slide. Will that be fine?
Yeah, that will be fine. But just to add on something on strengthening emotional intimacy is that when we are sitting with an issue that's not resolved, it makes us drift apart from each other. It makes the space to be somber.
Sure.
We struggle even communicating better. We struggle even doing things together. It's as though we want to escape each other.
Sure. People coming back home late,
yeah,
at 9, at 10 o'clock, just going straight to bed.
Straight to bed because you feel like it's heavy, you know. So so it actually it causes the marriage to be heavy. And it's a struggle if then the conflict is not resolved and there's no intention of actually fixing it. It can lead to divorce, it can lead to separation.
Separation, it can lead to the case that we're talking about, where someone takes a gun, shoots the wife, shoots other members. Others, they go to the extent of shooting their kids. They kill them, and then the last person to kill is themselves. So it is important for us to prioritize resolving conflict. It is quite very key. Now I think we can move to the next slide.
Please. Yes, please.
Okay.
So in sharing some of the strategies of resolving conflict, number one, we spoke on communication, active listening, and I think Modise had already touched on that. Active listening means listening firstly without judging, listening for understanding. And I always say listening for me is in three parts. You listen with your ears, you listen with your heart, and you listen with your eyes. So in listening with my ears, I'm hearing what you are saying. Listening to with my heart, I am sensing and I am feeling what you are saying. Listening with my eyes as well, I am listening to see if what you are saying is in congruence with what you are saying with your mouth. I'm listening, looking at the body language, because communication again is in many forms. So how does that help? It's helping me to understand even when my partner says yes, but the body language is saying something else. You know, so as we are learning to communicate, it's not everybody who's going to get it right. So, but it's also important that in the process, we are helping each other. So if he's going to say yes, but his body language is saying something else, then that's when I'm able to come in to say, I see you're saying yes, but it sounds like, or it looks like you are not maybe ready for that, or you are in essence disagreeing, but maybe you're saying yes because of.
No, do you know how is the simplest way to say it? It's like your face is betraying you.
That's
Your
what
face
my
is like,
husband
yeah.
always says to me.
Someone says something, but the face is already like
Betraying.
is betraying you. It says something different.
Yeah.
At times, someone responds with their face before they can verbalize their response. So it is important to equally pay attention to your body language. Just being aware. It goes a long way because unfortunately it becomes a reflex.
Yeah.
You know, your body already is responding because your heart has already responded on matters. So therefore becomes very important in that particular space. The aspect of active listening is quite very key.
And open-ended questions, do you want to take that one?
Look, I think probably maybe a few things to add on that part of the open-ended questions. And I think I want to give you sufficient time to deal with the first four horsemen.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the things when it comes to communication, Proverbs 17:27 we say, whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. So the way we have to deal with use communication as a strategy to deal with conflict is basically to understand we need to restrain our words. That is extremely important. We need to have a cool spirit. That's what the Bible says. And it says a man who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. That is number one for me. And I will then close with a part of the open-ended questions, but I just want to outline these few verses to say if one gives an answer before he hears it, he's folly and shame. So you got to learn to listen. Don't give an answer before you hear what your spouse is about to say, because on its own it then leads to the space whereby someone feel that they are being dismissed. And James 1:19 says, know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. At times you get angry too soon before you understand and hear what your partner is saying. Proverbs 12:18 says, the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Reckless covered with I am a straight talker. That is not being a straight talker. You are reckless. So you got to make sure that you are not reckless in your speech. And Ephesians 4:29 said, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth. Imagine you speak so careless to your spouse. It is something that we got to be very careful of. Psalm 141:3 says, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth, keep watch over the door of my lips. You got to make sure that you allow the Lord to guard to set a guard on your lips is very important. So let me say this part around open-ended questions. One of the things that will become very important is that if you want to find out something, you then get to learn to ask questions that are not conclusive. That is very important to say. Instead of asking the closed questions or the leading questions or the questions that just are looking for yes or no type of an answer, and the questions that are already given a specific answer, right? So those things we need to be very careful of. If someone could mute in the background, um, so that's quite very important around open-ended questions. These are the questions that are probing, that are asking, that are open to hear what your partner is about to say. They are asking for more information. They are exploratory. They go like what are the reasons? You see, it's open. It allows someone, and you avoid questions such as why did you do this? How did you get to this? Then it allows space for someone to be able to have a conversation. But the questions such as why, it's kind of like very confrontational in conversation. It can get to the place whereby it puts the person to even respond in anger or in defense. It was at times when certain attacking questions comes, someone wants to defend himself or herself. That's basically that happens under normal circumstances. That is quite very key for us to be mindful of things such as those. So I want to leave it here. I think we might close it on this slide to give for about 10 minutes for questions. Yeah, okay. You can go on.
Okay, but just in addition to that, I wanted to give an example of an open-ended question. For example, instead of asking, "Are you angry?" Yeah, you're probably going to get a no.
Yeah.
No. But instead, rephrasing that to say, I see you don't look happy. Please make me understand. You see, so that is allowing space for a conversation.
Yeah.
You are acknowledging that you are seeing that your partner is not okay, and I'm also opening space that we converse about it.
Yeah.
Instead of just asking closed, yes, are you angry?
Yeah.
So it's questions, learning how to phrase your questions in a way that they will allow conversation, because in conversation is when we understand what is the real issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then also checking in times as well. Check-in times. It's very important to have times where we will check in with each other. There's time for everything. So when can we check in with each other? When do we check in with each other? And I think it's something that should be a tradition. It's something that should be existing for every household, in checking on each other. Let's not wait only when there's issues that we want to check in, or we want to talk about issues, because then it feels like we are in a court of law. But now if we have a strategy where we are talking about things, issues, whether it's happy moments or whether it's sad moments, is whether it's resolving each, let's have check-in times where we can check in on each other. And then I want to speak on the last one there, avoiding the 4 horsemen. So Dr. Gottman, who is a marriage and a relationship specialist, he puts these 4 things. He says these are the things that lead to divorce, or they lead to relationships breaking down. Criticism. And now when he explains what criticism is, he explains it in a sense that when you are constantly criticizing your partner, there's never a time where you allow your partner, or you praise your partner for just doing something good. Just thank you for cooking for us. Thank you for providing for us. Thank you for buying bread. Thank you for the simplest and the small things that your partner does. Because the moment you only recognize things that are bad, it feels like you are constantly and continuously criticizing. And relationships that are constantly being criticized, they don't grow. Trust me, they deteriorate.
They do. When people, they say, like, we can't praise a fish for swimming. You are a man, you are a provider, so
No.
why should we? You are a woman, you are a wife,
You should cook, you must clean, you must,
yeah, those things, they really get to cause serious dents in relationships. So we then need to learn to really appreciate, and so that even in the days where we are not happy about certain things, someone knows that in their hearts that when things are well, we are able to appreciate each other. That's quite very important.
Yeah. And then the next one is contempt. So contempt is if I were to put it in simple terms, it's when you are, there's never a time where you are looking at your partner in a positive manner. Before they even finish talking, there's this disdain in you. You look at them in a manner of, can anything good come out of you? So that makes someone not to even have conversations. They would rather be silent, they would rather be quiet, and you have this silent house. We're carrying issues, but we cannot hold space for each other because someone else is in contempt. They look at you with disdain, without giving you a chance to be yourself authentically, so without judging who you are, without criticizing who you are. And the third one is defensiveness. When someone is always on defense mode, it's difficult to have a conversation with someone who's always defending themselves, because there's never a time where they take accountability for something that they've done.
Is it a fear of losing?
Yeah, it could be the fear of losing. And I can tell you that in most cases, defensiveness has to do more with backgrounds at times. It has to do with someone, maybe they have what we call an avoidant attachment style, where maybe they grew up in a space where they were always in trouble. And therefore, the moment they hear their name, they feel they are in trouble and they feel they quickly want to defend more, they want to defend themselves. Or it could be that they are in a relationship where they are constantly criticized. You are criticized and you quickly move to defensiveness because you are constantly being criticized by your partner and they never see anything good that you're doing. So you feel the need of always defending yourself or being on defense mode. So it's very important that there's always a balance. Criticizing, I think, because we're going to cut these slides, there was a part where we're going to talk about it, but having a sandwich approach in dealing with matters, appreciating your partner while you are positively having what is this word? Criticism. Constructive criticism, yes.
It's better than one, you see.
Constructive criticism, yes.
Yeah.
And then stone wailing, the last one there, stone wailing. Stone wailing is when someone just walks away. We're having a conversation, we're having a serious conversation, and someone just storms out. And with no communication, nothing of that matter, nothing of that, like they're not really communicating as to why am I not wanting to be part of this conversation. And sometimes there can be serious reasons to feel like, I feel like I'm too angry to have this conversation now. Can we park it? And we're going to actually come back to this conversation later. But when someone just walks away of the conversation, that also could be a sign that we might need to work around that, because then that is also a sign of disrespect. Because we're dealing with a matter here, and it's a serious matter that can actually affect our relationship, it can affect our marriage. But if you're going to walk away from this conversation without communicating, then it might mean that you might not be taking this part seriously. So there might be a need for us to go back and realize what are the priorities in this relationship. Because it's very important that in resolving, and again, going back to the characters or the personalities we've mentioned earlier, so sometimes you might find that being an introvert, you feel overwhelmed in a conflicted situation. So, and it is okay. It is okay to ask that at this moment, I feel like I'm too angry, or I don't really have the capacity for this conversation now. Can we park it for now? We are going to come back to it later. So this is you respecting the conversation that you are having with your partner. This is you respecting the marriage. This is you respecting your relationship, to say that I am not taking this for granted, but can we park it for later? Because walking away from it, that also could be a sign of a lack of emotional intelligence.
It is. Definitely it is. Because one of the things about emotional intelligence, love, I want to go to the last slide. There's just one point I want us to close with. So the aspect of emotional intelligence, it entails about 3 to 4 elements. One is self-awareness. You then are aware of yourself. Then secondly is about self-regulation. You know how to regulate yourself. And thirdly is about empathy. You got to have the sense of empathy. You can't be in marriage and not have empathy. It is important, because if you lack empathy, you're going to lose on every conflict. You're going to break marriage because you cannot be able to understand where your partner is coming from, whether she's right or he's right or not. But the fact is, they have the sense of empathy and feel where they are. That's quite very important. Just, I feel you, I hear you, I see you.
Even if you don't agree.
Even if I don't agree. The fact we're saying that we have resolved the conflict doesn't mean that we will always come to 100% agreement. Is that I hear you, I see what you're saying, but I still have a different opinion. That becomes that is kind of like what we then agree that's when probably we can talk around compromise. And for me, I know people at times they look at compromise from a negative connotation. Not always negative connotation. It's about meeting each other halfway at a particular point in time. That becomes very important. But let's close with this one and allow people to ask questions. I want to close with the aspect of counsel. No? So there are a few verses that we want to highlight there. Proverbs 11, verse 14, where there is no counsel, people fail. Where there is no counsel, people fail. Marriages fail where there is no counsel. In other words, there are points whereby you are not able to resolve matters on your own. It is better to have people that can come in and help you objectively to resolve certain matters. It doesn't mean that you are weak. And in fact, all the verses that I'm talking to 12, 15, 15, 22, 19, 20, and we could also add 24:6. It then tells us that all the verses, one way they are advocating for counsel. Then you got to get counsel from people who have gone ahead of you, from peers that are sound, yeah, and from peers that also believe in marriage, that share more or less the similar values as you, the peers that are able to hold you accountable as a man, also people that can call you out when you are actually not living right, when we are not taking the right decisions for your family. Those are some of the things that are quite very important. But those verses, all they then get to be saying, even if you look at 12:15, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to counsel. So you can't always feel that you can make the right decisions on your own. Proverbs 13 verse 10, arrogance leads to strife. Avoid arrogance, but wisdom is well advised. So it is quite very important to look at that. So that's one of the key points that we want to highlight. And we touch on constructive criticism, but other points will not go into them.
Yeah.
And then, so we want to get to the space where we say, and maybe let's have a few questions and we respond to that. Thank you so much, Ma'am Moholo, Linda Moholo. We then given back to you for just for us to have a few questions and engage with the audience at large.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I just feel like an hour is not enough for such a meaty and content like this. This is very important. It's very critical. And I see there's lots of questions, and I hope we will be able to answer all of them. In your 12 years, how did you make sure that you apply your emotional intelligence throughout?
It was not easy at first.
No, it wasn't.
It was not easy at first. And I think I saw someone speaking or talking about silent treatment. I think I was that person. I would just, I'm going to be quiet for the whole week. I'm not talking.
Hey, regular saying about do you know how does that feel? Ne? It felt like the heavens are brass over your head. Like God has rejected you. Like you feel like yo, just that at least it's better when someone tells you like I'm angry at you, but you're silent. You're not sure what you did. You're not sure what happened, and at times you're even afraid to ask. Say like, am I ready for this conversation? And that so and silent treatment is very dangerous, and I think
it's abuse. It's a form of abuse, actually.
She told me, I didn't say that. She told me that, she said like silent treatment is actually a form of abuse in marriage. So it was one of the things that we had to learn in the process. And so that's one of the, and I think Ruth, if you were maybe, sorry, I know that I've cut you, but I think on the question that Mama Holo is asking for me is that one of the things that we then had to learn that helped us in the 12 years of our marriage has been that we want to make this marriage work. That foundation was very clear. Two was a principle that says that we are fighting not as enemies, we are fighting as friends. That became a philosophy at all times. Thirdly, it became the aspect of saying when we have a difference, when we have a conflict, we may not need to address it now, because at that moment we might not be in the good space to talk well to each other. So it becomes that when you are angry, you can say any word, but the problem is that words that have been spoken can never be reversed. So it was very important for us to say that, you know what, now is not the right time for us to have this conversation. Then we will make time. We then kind of like take a walk, or we then are able to go and have a conversation at the restaurant. Do you know what? How does that help? It also helps you to manage yourself. You are in front of people.
You're not gonna scream.
You can't scream anyhow, but we can have a conversation. So create an environment that allows you to have a good conversation, whereby you can still hold yourself and that. Then the last thing for me has always been the aspect of saying willingness to apologize. I know that there are times whereby I've personally apologized 100 times for the same thing, but yeah, the effort to try to make it work has been there, and then also the patience with each other has been quite very important to help us in dealing with conflicts, and so that has been quite very important. But maybe Ruth, at some time we will talk about the issue of understanding not just personality as introvert and extrovert, but also understanding how we are wired, that there's a depth in terms of that, the essence of mental space of each other. That is very important. It therefore helps. You know, people at times they are not aware that you are married to someone who is bipolar, and you realize like this time all right, this time like, and all of a sudden and that. So, and any other kind of like psychological mental health conditions and that, then you then know how to manage around each other in that space. So because and talk about those things, those things they end up affecting us because we realize that we are struggling with a particular mental condition one way or the other. So that becomes very important. For me, those are the 5 things that have helped us so far. Anything to add, Ruth?
No, I think you've covered it very well. Thank you.
Or should I tell them that even when you're angry, when my wife is angry at me, very angry, my food does not go into the microwave. It comes with a tray, and I'm served as if like we're not. And then, so what we then made is
dealing with myself.
Yes,
So that's me dealing with myself.
Yes.
You know, to say, even in our arguments or even in our differences, I still love you.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to serve you as I should.
Yeah.
So nothing has changed. It's just that we have a difference in opinion.
And no one sleeps on the street. No one sleeps on the couch. We sleep in the same bedroom, especially when we are angry at each other. Then when I get home, even if I'm angry, if I kiss my wife, I normally kiss my wife as if like I'm not angry. That becomes very important. We closing the gap so that the enemy does not have a chance to come in the space. When I'm angry, even if I would have a meeting anywhere, I cancel it, I come home, so that there is no any space that the enemy has in a way that will therefore bring in temptations, because some temptations they come in the moments where we have conflict, because then the enemy then presents certain opportunities. All of a sudden someone become very kind, very you don't look happy today, what's wrong, let me take you, I'm there for you, I'm there for you. And like you feel like, whoa, I didn't hear I'm there for you, go high. and you know, so those are the things that are really challenging for all of us. So we then manage that particular space individually, and then collectively we make sure that we do that for each other.
But Ruth, in that moment where you are serving with Trey and you are angry, are you talking? Are you guys, having a conversation? Like, what's happening? Like, just give us a practical. Are you talking, or you just say, and then you sit, or are you in the same room? Can you still look at him? Like, didn't just take us the image. Yeah.
So in the beginning, it was very tough, but I knew that I needed to challenge myself in the process of understanding and learning conflict. But now it's very easy for me. I because we would have spoken prior, and we probably would have decided to say, let's park this issue for now. We're going to deal with it a little bit later when we are ready for it. But for me then, and for us, it does not mean that other conversations cannot happen. We could be talking about something else that is not even related to the conflict. How was your day at work? How are things? We could be talking about different things except for the conflict, because the conflict might just give emotions again that are probably negative at that moment. So I'd be serving him his food and asking him, how was your day? How are you doing? And we could have just a normal conversation. And yeah.
Yeah, and true, it becomes I think, as I say, with time, then things they become different.
Easier.
So in the beginning we'll be like, you get your food, thank you.
And I walk away. I used to walk away.
I eat my food. And
were you not afraid I'm poisoning you?
Yeah. No. I knew that, like, if you poison me, I pray for my food. so that, and then and but the and the other important thing has always been the fact that we knew that we love each other.
Yeah.
And then in the beginning, Ruth, in the slide, she had a point that she wanted to make around avoiding statements such as, I will pack my bags and leave.
Yeah,
because
threatening to leave.
in the beginning, my wife used to threaten me, and I would be frustrated that you are bazongishiya la, and all that. So in the beginning of the marriage, things such as this, I'll pack my bags and go home. And the other one that nearly broke me, and I never told my wife, she's gonna hear it for the first time. Like, she said, like, I'll take my son and leave. Like, imagine,
Yeah.
So things such as those, and the point that I'm trying to share is that, look, this 12 years has not been a walk in the park.
Yeah.
It had its own challenges. Then we learned on how to deal with differences and conflict, and it goes with time and the willingness to learn
and the patience
with each other. And also, let's bear in mind that we coming from different backgrounds. We have really some at times traumatic experiences, how we were raised, and many other things. Those things, they have an impact in our marriages. So you find that I'm defending myself because, for example, I've never been told that I'm loved, so I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
She feels that probably I'm not affectionate, and I'm not used to being touched. I love my space, so she wants to keep, like, not showing me affection. You can have a conflict because of, like, she feels that you are not being affectionate, but I'm not used to. I love my space. So don't touch me many times, So patience with each other.
Last question. So in your disagreement and your anger, so do we have sex?
Interesting question.
It's a very interesting one.
Very interesting. I'm listening.
I want to know, like, Ruth, do we open the garage, girl, or we close? Like, what do we do?
See, so I think it depends on. I think in the beginning for me it was no ways, no ways, no ways. I want to hear you apologize, and and sometimes it's difficult to be intimate. Yeah, it's very difficult to be intimate when you are not emotionally okay, and so it does allow space also for your partner to understand that when are you comfortable to actually be intimate. So, and I think for me, especially when now that we are at a space where we kind of, like, I don't think we 100% figured it out, but we're at a space where we are comfortable with conflict. We are comfortable with resolving conflict, and even if we've parked it aside. So for me, I'm at a space where I don't mind. I don't mind actually being intimate with him while we're having the conflict, especially when we touched on it a little bit. It might not have been fully resolved, but we just parked on it. We parked it on the side. And yeah, maybe the garage can be open. I don't mind that. But if it's something that we have not really even engaged on, I usually, personally, and I'm not speaking for anyone, I feel like I'm not emotionally okay. And
Yeah,
I can't.
Yeah.
look, I think in some instances it happened, eh? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think because one at times we will find that and I think I did not have the explanation of it until and I'm a student of my wife. She's learning. She's in the counseling space and psychology space. So some of the concepts I did not have the understanding of, and until kind of like we learn all this, then at times you would find that intimacy then opens the means to have a conversation.
Sometimes.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
right? So it's not a straight line that will say yes or no. So there are times where we'll find that we encourage each other, and remember we have a principle that even when we are angry at each other, if I put my hand, you don't move it, then that being physically in contact with each other, at times it then leads to us in getting involved and garachi bule hair and then not. Then after that it then becomes like a conversation, but sometimes it doesn't. So we should be able to look at it as that it is not a yes and no answer, but it is important also,
Yeah.
which is the part that I say I've learned, not to use intimacy to cover up issues.
Yeah.
Then you have intimacy for as a means to cover up,
and then you end up not resolving.
You end up not resolving issues. So it's a dynamic space, and I think every couple will deal with issues differently. So we should not, and please, and even as we have these conversations, we should not make our personal preferences the universal principles. What probably worked for us may
Might
not work for a
another
particular couple.
Yeah.
So it is important for us to realize that we can share what we have learned in our marriage. It would kind of like enlighten, illuminate, and help others, but it may not help others. So it's not a universal principle. It is kind of like
Yeah.
how we found something as a preference, and also what is practical and what worked for us in that. Yeah. So that's how we found it in a process. So it still happened at some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think, and to be quite honest, is that even when we are arguing or couples are arguing, maybe the other one is facing that way, the other one is facing, there is a part of you that still misses your partner. So there is a part of you that needs to be cuddled. There's a part of you that needs to, but it's, especially if you're an avoidant attachment style person, you feel you want to be embraced, but you want to be distant. There's that battle in between that is happening inside of you.
Keep trying, brah.
So it's that, and until we probably get to a space where you are comfortable in winning yourself when it comes to how you're dealing with conflict, because sometimes that cry in you could be also that little child in you who could not resolve conflict, and they are in need of that partner who's going to cuddle them, but at the same time the you wants to push him away because you are angry. So for what worked for me was to be, let me allow the embrace, because listen to yourself and listen to your body, listen to everything within you. What do I need at this moment? Maybe I need a cuddle. And maybe the partner is willing to give you that cuddle. Ask yourself a question: why am I refusing? Why am I refusing the cuddle? Is it pride? Is it what is it that you are dealing with at that moment? So it's also important to ask yourself those important questions. So yeah, and I know that it does take time, and it shouldn't be something that is forced on someone. It should be something that comes from the heart.
Maybe the last thing to say on that, is for me is to say, look, at any point in time, we must
I love
the last one. I miss nothing. And I think also it becomes then it then is also around to say what is it that has made me angry.
Yeah.
That the intensity of the matter then has an impact on the reaction.
Yeah.
So we should always be clear to say like, okay, fine, what are the things that we can let go? What are the things that we feel like here, let's then get to work on this, right? So it then becomes very important for us to look at those things. But for me, if I see it, let's give it a demand.
What? What?
So because at times people you find that they then end up going for days, right?
As a way of punishing.
As a way of punishing, as a way of so that on its own, and I'm not condoning anything here. So don't create a temptation for your partner. Yeah. So, and I always say that firstly is that I fear God, right? So the aspect of fearing God will grounds me at all times, right? So, but it's also very important to make sure that we don't actually get to the space whereby we are pushing each other to the limits, or we are using that as a form of punishment.
Yeah.
Let it be to say like, let's then get to deal with this matter and then go back here and enjoy ourselves. Because if I'm not in this space, I'm not emotionally okay, I can't.
Cannot.
So let's then resolve this, and then so that we can get into this. That becomes important for me.
And a very valid point, because also I think if we all can all take marriage as ministry, and you mentioned a very important point that we go through as pastors, that we drive to church not talking to one another, but we still going to serve when we get there. We are still going, even when you don't want to serve, to punish your husband who's a pastor, but Holy Spirit will convict you somehow to say, but hey, hang on, you still continue to serve in church. So I think also we still need to invite the Holy Spirit, even in our marriages. If I am denying my husband or my spouse in punishing them, and what am I saying to God and to the Holy Spirit? Because this institution, as much as we chose each other, it's still a ministry from God, and we cannot build according to the standard of this world. The standard of this world might say, close the garage, girl, but unfortunately, we are led by the Holy Spirit, and the Bible says, do not go to bed angry. So, in the bedroom, we just need to know also what Holy Spirit in the bedroom must be present. All right, we are closing. So the theme for the month is the vows, right? Would you say your vows, and I'm talking about the traditional vows, I'm not talking about those vows that with big English that we write. I'm talking about for better, for worse, in sickness and in health, till the death do us apart. So in this, for poor, for richer, in this 12 years of your marriage, would you say your vows were tested and you overcame, or you are still standing because you had made a commitment and then your vows were tested and then you held on to one another and you are committed to fulfilling your promises?
Definitely. I would say definitely the vows have been tested, and I think that's what marriage is all about, because it's two people coming from different spaces, and somehow you must just make it work. So just that being a difference, or having that difference, is enough to make us strangle each other. You look at this person and you're like, yo, So, but I think in the midst of that, and I always say that when we celebrate anniversary, we also celebrating the number of times we could have walked away from each other and ended this, but God still held us together. So I think it's worth being celebrated. So vows do get to be tested, because just like any other relationship gets to be tested. But I think in the 12 years,
yeah. Look, the example that I will give is when we went to the one, is it Sunnyside Gynecological Hospital, and they told us that we cannot give birth. It was in our very first year of marriage. and that was kind of like really tough, right? And my wife at that point in time said, I think you can marry any other person if you want. And it was testing. I had a visa, blank check, you know, and then came back and said, look, um, I did not marry you because I want kids.
Mm.
Then I married you because I love you. That was a
Oh.
test of the vows. This one. Two is that we grew together with Ruth. I'm proud of what Ruth has achieved. And she just completed her second honors degree. She's graduating sometime in November. But it has been a journey of her starting her career while we are in marriage.
Yeah.
That from her first year until to her second honors, it is after we got married. And the patience was like
You
at that
have
point in time,
been.
I have a master's, then I'm already working and I'm exposed to any and any woman in different spaces. Then still to say that I'm committed to my wife. Then one of the things that we then agreed on was to say, do something for yourself. You are studying for yourself. It is not for me.
Yeah.
It is not to make me happy. It's not to make me proud, but it's to make yourself proud. That's the second element. This third one, I will not necessarily go much into detail about it, but it is a part around to say in marriage, then you find that the other spouse gets sick, and there is a sickness, there's a condition, then still on that be able to support each other regardless of the challenge that we are experiencing, right? That on its own, it tests the vows. And lastly, it's our pregnancies have not been easy, and it has been about how like look, let's call it quit, we are done with kids at this point in time. And then they've really been there for each other throughout those challenging periods. For example, in our first pregnancy, my wife had to be on bed rest 40 weeks, full 40 weeks. Then no work, no business, nothing. Now, from someone who was running her own business and now has to be at home, and that on its own, it tests your vows. Then you then stand, and like we're still here today. Then we have a prematurity is one of the challenging and difficult things, and still be able to stand together. And then that's an element of like the vows being tested.